The headrests don't even get me started. I never like these big giant headrests that we have in these cars today. I don't know what the answer is on that. I do know that so think about this headrest when you look at it. Somebody that's never actually sat in a car or grabbed a hold of these headrests. You look at it and you go, well, that makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of foam around you, right? Mm-hmm. This foam, it's comfortable like a shoe. Absolutely not.
Wow.
It's hard as a rock. The foam that we use in these cars is a very, very hard. It's not this nice. It's not like a roll of toilet paper. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's not a pillow. It's hard, almost as hard as this desk. In high impact moments, it does give a little bit. It does dent, but in my opinion, the headrests can absolutely improve. We never focused on the back of the headrest. There's very little material between the actual carbon fiber surrounding hard shell and your helmet. We never looked at that and said, that needs to be padded more, that needs to be softer, that needs to absorb better. We never did because the rear impacts were never really a problem. We had a ton of absorbing energy in the bumpers, and all the rear of the car would just crush away. So the rear impacts weren't never there an issue. It was always that right front 45, 30-degree angle hit that you were working on, and that's why on the headrest, they got wider and wider, and the foam got wider and wider and more in just the right side. We would have as much as we could possibly fit on the left side without the headrest sticking outside the car. But on the right side, we've got this, we've got a foot of foam between us and the actual carbon surround. While that looks proper, I always felt like having my head in that headrest, it might as well be right up next to a roll bar. I mean, it's as hard as it, it's hard foam. And so if you have a 45-degree right front impact at 150 miles an hour, it is doing you some good, but it is not protecting you from an injury.
Certainly not protecting your brain from running into your cranium.
Yeah,
I mean, that's bruising. That's concussions.
Yeah, it's not. And so that's always kind of been my problem with it is like, it's going to protect me in a short track, 50, 90, 80 mile an hour wreck, but in a big 1.5 mile track, I really never loved having my head in that big freaking headrest as hard as that foam was. Because in those high, 130 above in those type of crashes, I mean, I ain't wanting my head up against that.
That's interesting.
And so
never even thought about that.
Yeah. And they're going to talk about the headrests a lot because, they're understanding with the rear impacts and the lack of material in the back of the headrests that this all needs to be revisited, right? This headrest thing needs, and get ready because the headrests are going to change a little bit. They're going to start making some mandates on thickness of the foam in the back and all kinds of different things. So, while they improve the back of these cars, they're going to ask the teams and the drivers to make some adjustments as well to that surround. And they're going to start, testing that and say, hey, this is what we have to have there to improve. And now that's going to change. That could change actually the cage of the car to be able to, incorporate whatever that change in the headrest surround is to be able to get more material in the back. But again, you get into, 130 or, I'm just throwing a number out there. When you get into a high-speed collision, I would rather in my head not be up against anything. And I know that's not the answer. I know that's not going to save me from a concussion. We've had drivers have head injuries for as long as this sport's been around. And you don't have to bang into you don't have to hit your head on something to get a concussion. Just the quick motion of the car spinning around. We've had injuries to drivers of cars just rotating. A quick rotation of a car can spin the brain inside the head and damage it. And so you don't have to have a collision of your head into that foam headrest to create this issue. we got these headrests the way they look now, and we kind of quit working on it. We kind of quit trying, well, at least visually looking at what the headrests look like. We haven't made that better. And I've never loved where we are right now with this surround, this headrest surround. A lot of drivers try to sneak them down so that when you do have an impact, it's in the cheek area of the helmet. I mean, honestly, Mike, if you're trying not to get your head rung, you're willing to take your risks with what that might do to your neck or whatever, right? You obviously, in NASCAR, the officials will walk around when the drivers get in the cars. There's officials that are specifically walking around and looking at the helmet and the headrest and how they relate to each other, and they will go up to you and say, you got to raise your headrest. It's too low. I don't like where it's at. It's way too low, and they'll tell you. And you have to get some new mounts, and you have to get that headrest up. And I always tried to get mine down as far as I could, not only to be able to look visually over the right side of the headrest with my eyes so I could see the driver next to me on the racetrack, but I also felt like as I got that headrest down, my brain was in a better situation during a very high-speed impact. That my lower, my jaw, cheek, all of that would be where the impact was felt the most, and that would lessen the movement of my, that would lessen all that was happening inside my head with my brain in a very high impact situation. This is a tough thing because I think we can get. This is tough and frustrating for me because I think we can get a lot better there in terms of the physical build of the headrest, how the headrest functions, how it functions in a low speed plus a high speed crash. And I don't have the answers. Trust me. And I understand my thinking is flawed in some areas, and I've learned that it's flawed in some areas because in 2017 when I was going to come back and run that final year, I sat down with NASCAR. I had a couple of NASCAR safety guys come into Junior Motorsports, and I was going to sit down with them, and I was going to tell them this. And I did tell them this. I said, you remember those old Breakaway headrests? It basically was a sheet of aluminum, and it was strong enough that you could lay your head against it in the corner and race, but if you crashed, it would bend away. Your head would bend it away. The weight of your head in an impact would fold that out of the way. And we went away from those back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, and we started using these big heavy-duty aluminum surrounds. And then we got, and that came right around the same time we started using the head and neck restraints, which I think the Hans device is probably one of the most important devices that you'll put on when you get inside a race car. So in my thinking, I told NASCAR, those safety guys in this meeting on an off weekend in the off season before 2017, I said, I'm coming back for my final year. I'm going to run this old style Breakaway headrest. And I said, I know that's probably sounds stupid to you because you're head of safety and you've gotten so far away from those. But I think with this Hans device on my head, it's going to keep my head from flying off of my shoulders in a crash. And I really don't want to, put my head up against the big giant headrest that we have that don't go anywhere, that don't move when you hit. I don't want to hit that anymore. And I want it to be strong enough to hold my head up in a corner so I can lean on it a little bit, save my neck muscles somewhat on a 500-mile race. But when I crash, I want that to get out of the way, and I want this Hans device to do the rest. They said, no, we're not going to allow you to have that type of headrest, but we will help you understand why the headrest you were using maybe wasn't functioning as well. If you like that conversation, you ought to listen to the entire podcast. The Dale Jr. Download is available on all major podcast platforms.